Oh, I see the clock is already running. Thanks for coming. What I think we'll start off doing is learning who's in the audience today. And so by a show of hands, how many investors are here? Investors, VCs. How about founders?
It's a lot of founders.
Good, founders. Do you work at a startup? Who works at a startup? What about coders, developers? A lot of coders, some coders. Marketing and business development, raise your hand. Or sales and marketing. Any students? Good. What did I miss?
Designers.
Design.
Oh, designers, yeah, because we've got a brand company on stage. Okay, good. So one of the things that I'm concerned about in public relations, which is what I do, is we work with a lot of startups, and startups, when do startups start thinking about when to market? So what comes first? What should they be doing before they go to TechCrunch or they go to the media to announce their quote-unquote launch?
Well, I think hopefully they've started to think about marketing at the same time that they're developing the product itself. Some of the companies that we talk to are companies that come from a tech background. They're thinking about features. They're thinking about building their product. But ultimately, the way we look at it is you have to think about what your product is going to say in culture and as a brand and what it does, from a functionality and technology standpoint. So hopefully it's happening at the same time, and those are kind of orchestrated together, marketing and product development.
And from a branding perspective, is that the first thing they do? Is they design their logo and they decide what their brand attributes are? And
I doubt the first thing a startup does is to think about how my logo will be, whether the logo will be in red, pink, or whether the font will be this or that one. I think what they actually, my experience working with startups, it's what is the benefit, what am I doing this, and what will they win for this? And to do this, they develop what they call the minimal viable product to actually make them work. To do this, in our view, what you have to look at is what sort of experience I really want my potential users to feel, to have when they interact with me. And that could be digital, or it might not be digital. We tend to think that every startup is a digital one, but some startups do not do digital, and the experience is still there. And brand, at the end of the day, is how you encapsulate that experience. Whether your logo type is nice or not nice, it's better to have a nice logo type, but what's really, really important is the promise that you have and how you deliver that promise.
So RGA is a different kind of agency. It's not your traditional ad agency. I don't know if you guys know this, but RGA has actually an accelerator within the agency. And in fact, in London, you're now taking applications to become part of the accelerator. So if those of you that are in the UK or in Europe, just UK?
Yep, yeah, UK, yeah. Yeah, so that's right. Yep.
Why did RGA introduce an accelerator? Is it because advertising is broken and it doesn't work anymore, and you needed some other revenue stream, or so?
Yeah, no, not as simple as that. RGA is. On the one hand, we're a global kind of consultancy and agency, and we work with some of the top brands out there. But we also have a ventures arm, which is really around helping startups with a lot of the things that we do for our bigger clients, and also helping startups connect with the corporates that we work with. And part of the reason why we do it is because there's just a tremendous amount of innovation that happens, that's happening at that level. Entrepreneurs are going and starting companies, at a much higher rate than they're joining some of the big corporates. And so there's a lot of interest on the corporate side to connect with those startups, and of course a lot of interest on among the startups to connect with agencies that can help them with some of the branding and technology and design consulting that we do for our bigger companies.
So I know RGA and Saffron, you work with some very big brands. You were telling me you work with some countries. You represent, So here we are, a bunch of founders and startups and whatever, just getting started. So they can't afford you. Can they?
Yes, you can afford us. Yes, you can afford RGA. Yes, you can afford Saffron. The point is not, the good thing about us that are independent agencies is that we don't really have an agenda which is fundamentally a financial agenda. We are in this business because we really enjoy this business, because we love this business. And we have a lot of clients, small clients, that we work with because we want to help them succeed. And I'm not bullshitting here, I'm really genuinely saying it. The same way that you have a minimal viable product, we've developed what we call a minimal viable brand. I mean, a minimal viable brand is an approach which in a very streamlined way, we come up in a very, very appropriate price. We develop stuff that can be ready for market in a matter of weeks. And this is something that we've learned. We've learned because we had to learn, because it's fundamental that we had to get close to your ecosystem. Some people do it themselves by having startups, incubators inside their business. We want to get close to you, because if we ignore people like you, we are ignoring a fundamental part of how progress is being built and how society is being shaped. And that's why we developed this system about having minimal viable brands and working. Yes, of course, when we worked for YouTube, we worked for 2.5 years, and it was an enormous fee because Google has money is not a big issue with Google. But working with small startups that we've done many, many, many times is wonderful, even much more enjoyable than working for the very, very large corporations. And we do that. Yeah.
And a way for a small startup to get into RGA maybe is through the accelerator. They're not going to be hiring RGA to do their national advertising and that kind of thing. So a lot has changed in the last 5 years in the marketing world, and I've seen it. I mean, the media has become fragmented. And I was watching your CEO and founder, Bob Greenberg, on a panel yesterday with Hegarty from BBH, and there seems to be this sort of tension. Hegarty was saying, well, we still have to broadcast our message, and we still have to broadcast our message out. And then someone was saying, well, you have to get ambassadors. You've got to get people to spread the word for you. So, what is the best way to get the word out? I mean, I know there isn't one panacea. So, but for startups, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's as you say. I mean, I think it absolutely it's completely different depending on what kind of business you're in. If you're in a B2B business or a direct-to-consumer business, I mean, we worked with and the size. We say startup, but startup is a wide range of early stage and growth stage companies. We worked with a little-known startup named Beats by Dre a long time ago that, of course, became a big company when they got bought by Apple, and for them, we did a lot of broadcast work. There's B2B companies that we work with that don't do any paid advertising at all, and what they do is really focus on building relationships one by one and growing that way. And then there's smaller B2C companies that are doing a lot of paid, a lot of influencer marketing, and so I think the answer is. The answer is you have to find the right mentors and advisors to help you navigate that and figure out what are the right tactics and hire the right people, get the right talent on board earlier than later to figure out what those tactics are.
There's a term that I learned called attribution. You guys know what attribution is? So attribution is this in the marketing world. You have all of these different disciplines available to you: advertising, PR, social, content marketing, etc. Which was the one that delivered ROI, return on the investment? How do you find out? How do you determine? So if thinking about all those disciplines, Jacob, is it public relations? Is it earned media? Is it editorial coverage? Is it advertising? Is it word of mouth marketing? Is it content marketing? Where's the ROI coming from? Or again, it depends on the company.
Obviously, I mean, on the one hand, one could say it's all of the above. On the other hand, one should say that the most important thing is to really understand the behaviors of the consumer and the behaviors of the consumer you're targeting. And by doing very little ethnographic research, you find out that mobility is a fundamental thing, and how you reach your customers through the thing that we all hold on our hands is the most relevant and important thing. Whether that is through branded content on YouTube or whether that is through social media is to be determined depending on the particular product, the particular customer.
I look at this first question, and maybe it's for you, Nick. It says, I can't see that thing, but I can see this. What is the best system for bootstrapping a startup to create some marketing dollars to spend? I mean, I had a startup come to me and they said they want to do an ICO. to raise funds, or some people do crowdfunding, or some people look to the venture capital. What's proven?
It's like add blockchain to your business plan. But I think there's two things. One is you asked, what is the? I mean, I think part of this is one thing we have learned is test those different tactics that that you just discussed and see what scales. And then the things that are actually working, then spend money on those things. Don't go and pay on a hunch and an intuition or hire a bunch of experts. Figure out what you think is going to work on a small scale and then pay to scale that up. I think where we come from, we definitely think that the kind of venture studio accelerator model is a good one, because it helps you. It helps you develop an early marketing strategy, but also helps you tap into a lot of the different kinds of skill sets that you need. Where there's some brand design, there's some PR, there's some comm strategy, there's some kind of growth hacking, and you can sort of get parts of that all in one package if you do something like an accelerator, whether it's ours or somebody or another of the good accelerators that are out there.
There's something really, really important here, which is before digital really came into place, what you said could not really be exactly the same thing as what you used to do. So you could say, in other words, you could say something which was really, really nice, something wonderful, etc., and you can get on with it. You could really get out by doing something which was not exactly aligned with what you used to say. With the reality that we live in today, the barrier between what you say and what you do have collapsed. So you have to be incredibly rigorous and honest in saying what you're going to be doing, because otherwise they're going to catch you. And if they catch you, it doesn't matter how they will, but they will catch you, you're doomed.
Yeah, and that's why, again, brand, you can't do brand later. You have to do brand at the same time that you're really developing your product.
I know a lot of people are thinking about social, and they're thinking about amplifying messaging and et cetera on Facebook, the elephants in the room. I mean, would Russia win the Clio or whatever the award is, or the Palme d'Or at Cannes for its efforts in the U.S. election? I mean, it was, not to politicize this at all.
Well, people say that Russia is influencing the secessionist movement in Catalonia. So I think people are starting to create demons around Russia, yes, there's a hidden agenda that we all know. We all know there is a hidden agenda, but we don't really know what the agenda is.
There's always been propaganda. This makes it more complicated and probably...
Yeah, we could have a whole session, a whole day just talking about that. But,
exactly.
But how important is social for startups? I mean, should they be allocating their marketing spend to amplify messages on Facebook or sponsored tweets or that kind of thing? Or should they look to traditional media or influencer marketing or content marketing? So I'm coming back to that question. What's right for this group?
I mean, it really depends. This group is going to be a lot of different types of different companies. And again, if you're a B2B company, a lot of it is going to be relationships. You're not going to want to spend money on paid media. You're going to want to spend money on coming to events like this and meeting people and being in the right place at the right time. For other companies, it's going to be an influencer marketing strategy where you're going to first find something that's authentic and actually resonates, and then you're going to scale it up. You're going to buy paid media in Facebook or Instagram.
So what's a minimal viable brand in your company? I mean, how much? How do you define that, and what does the minimal viable plan expect to pay?
At the end of the day, when you have a minimal viable product, because you go out, you have to pack what you want to sell. So that minimal viable product needs to be, to say the least, coupled with the minimum elements to really have a face, which is what is the name, what is the visual expression, what is the fundamentals, look and feel of that product. That obviously varies from industry to industry, whether it's digital only, whether it's digital and physical, whether it's only physical, whether it's biological. I mean, it all depends. But the minimal viable brand, which I hate the word brand there, because to me brand is a much bigger and encompassing concept that must include experience. The minimal viable brand is the set of name, visual expression, and minimum visual identity elements that you can get on with. And that could be the beginning of something which is much, much bigger and much more profound. One could get this minimal viable brand, and I hate again to say the word brand in this particular case, through the masses. I was on stage yesterday with a guy, the CEO of 99 Designs, and they do this online, and they get the logo designed for a very, very small amount by people around the world through direct digital contact, which is interesting, which is very economical, but to me, it lacks something which is fundamental, is the human interaction between the entrepreneur and the advisor that really understand the psyche and the fundamental drivers behind this minimal viable product. We all started by having a minimum viable product, but we don't build a business out of a minimum viable product. We want to launch, but then we want to have something which is much bigger. And by understanding this is when you can start by having the minimum viable brand and then creating eventually the experience.
Understood. So Nick, as CTO of RGA, you've seen a lot of startups, right, come through the accelerator. What are some of the biggest mistakes that startups make on the marketing when they start marketing their product or service?
Well, I think one is I think a lot of startups come, not all, but a lot of startups come from a technology founder culture and environment, and there's one of the common pitfalls is sort of we're going to focus 100% on product, and if we build it right, they'll come, right?
Right.
And that the brand is going to somehow tell the brand that the world is going to know about your brand before before you get it out there. And so I think that again, we try to help them think about brand and marketing and product development concurrently. Because, I mean, to your point, this idea of the minimum viable brand, minimum viable product, again, what that's really about is about creating a forcing function so you can get something out there. What that really means, minimum viable, really means create a forcing function, get it out there and learn something from what you see when it lands in people's hands. Ultimately, it's humans using it, and there's a cultural environment that the product is going to launch in. And by the way, that cultural environment is changing really fast. So you can't hire a bunch of experts, come up with a plan and build something, and 9 months later or 12 months later, see it get lit up and sort of make the mistakes very late in the game. You want to make mistakes earlier and course correct. And that's what this is really about, is aligning brand and product development and orchestrating those things together.
One other question, Jacob, last question, because we've got 20 seconds left. So some of these startups have competitors. There are other people that are trying to solve the same problem. How can you stand out? Now, this is probably a very long answer, but how do you stand out? I mean, at the beginning, do you need to do something outrageous? Do you need to,
In my view, I think one of the mistakes startups make is that they do a lot of navel gazing. They really believe they really believe I found it. I am the next Mark Zuckerberg. I am the next Bill Gates, and they ignore the customer.
They don't look at the competitive landscape.
And the customer, and the benefit that the customer is going to get, and what are the others doing. And I think one of the most important things is, of course, you have to believe in yourself. Of course, you have to be as self-confident as you can, so that when you go out and talk to VCs, you can raise the money you need. But do not navel gaze, and do not think that you are the master of the universe, because you're not.
Right. Well, thank you very much, guys. Really helpful. We had 20 minutes, a whole 20 minutes, but we got through it, so appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.